Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian own, not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live or listening to the replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live or listening to the replay. This is Christian at Trust Christian from the vault. Always appreciate you live or tuning in. This is episode 253, Benefits of a DBA for a Trust Fund. Once again, this is the vault episode 253, benefits of a DBA for a trust fund. So we've gotten this question over the years. This is like pretty much typical consultation question because we get the question from a lot of the Moors, a lot of the people that, appreciate Memphis, Tennessee for tuning in live. Always appreciate Memphis, Tennessee tuning in. Feel free to type into the chat where you're listening from. But we appreciate Memphis, Tennessee for tuning in live, listening to replay. So we got this question for years now. A lot of the Moors come around and they say, hey, we got this trust fund squared away. We know we got a trust and all this different stuff. And then they were like, but we're going to do a DBA to where now the trust has copywritten the name and, we're going to do that way. It's like, okay, at the same time, you still doing business in your name. Why? Because you're using the so-called trust fund that has your name in it. And then they go from the trust having their name on it. That's the trust. The trust is their name. Okay. They're the grantor. They're the trustee. So they still don't know what to do. This is how they come in. They come in broken children. And we put them back in shape. So they can be well-adjusted adults and humans. So appreciate Callie for tuning in live. Always appreciate Callie for tuning in live, listening to the replay. And we got Mississippi tuning in live, listening to the replay. Appreciate everybody for typing into the chat where they're listening live from. So they say, okay, Trust Christian. Say, we created the trust. We're the trustees. And we're the grantor too. And now we're looking to create a DBA so we can go get a new EIN number. You think we haven't heard this before? Hold on. They're going to go use the trust to go get a DBA, which is a doing business as name, and then get a new EIN. It don't work that way. And we got trustees that come through. It doesn't make a difference whether you're in a trust or the foundation. You still don't get a new EIN. It's all a part of the same entity. So this helps people in so many different ways because now they have a front-facing, camera, as they say. It's a front-facing camera where they can put whatever image they want out, be a different name, not even the main name. So even though you're not supposed to own nothing, control everything, you're not supposed to have everything in your name, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to make sure that the company doesn't ever reflect your name. But oh, no. How many people say, I'm going private, but their name is out there on the DBA. And now they're doing deep business through a DBA with a different number. Like, okay, I'm not using my social, but at the same time, this social, but at the same time, I'm using this, DBA or whatever they say that they're using with a different number. And it's like, but do you understand how that works? Because at the end of the day, let's be real here. Like, at the end of the day, you still doing business in your name. How is that helpful? How is that helpful to you being private? You say you going private, but the business is set up in your name. Like even in trusteeship, people say, okay, we got the proprietary method, trust Christian, own and control everything. But at the same time, you're still doing business with your name, the name itself, whether it's a DBA or it's not. So one of the benefits of the DBA for a trust is that it's not supposed to be your name. You can do business as another name. They call it AKAs, things like that. But some people are trying to get the process mixed up with, I'm going to go get a new number and this, that, and the third. First of all, the beneficiary can't separate itself from the owner. The owner of the account is the owner of the account until they relinquish ownership. But as long as the trust owns the DBA, it's the trust DBA. Second of all, why would you want your name to be on anything? But this is the thinking that we adjust and we correct in trustee trading, is that it's about your thinking. How do you think of it? Are you looking to have things in your name, but now they're not in your name because they're in a different number? Well, they're still in your name. And even if you get a different number, Okay, do you know how to administer that next number? How many people truly know how to administer another number? First of all, it's still business. It's not personal. So that means that you're doing business. What? Hold on. Doing business as. You're doing business as another entity, whether it's you or the trust. So those being separate is doing business as. So now it has a name that is going through, and that's that. It's got a name that is doing business as. It's not, the number is what is important. Why? Because it's dealing with transactions. And they're not separate. Why? Because one entity had to file on behalf of the other entity and get the other entity's opening. A person, which is a legal person, can create another legal person. That's what happened. The trust created a what? Another legal person. But they're not separate from them. These are like Siamese twins. Why? Because the trust is really the entity that's operating. It just has like what would people consider. The reason why they started doing this process, it was for trademark purposes. Like, oh, well, we could trademark it. And it's an easy way to, file it as a business. And then we come back and copyright and trademark. And it's like all these things that you hear people saying is like, well, a DBA is a DBA, a copyright is copyright, and a trademark is a trademark. It's that simple. So let's see how we're going to move on when we get past that it's not personal, it's business. Well, the benefits is now the trust doesn't have to necessarily open up a public entity. It doesn't have to go public because the DBA isn't public. It's just separate. And it's just another name, but it's ultimately still a private entity. Why? Because it's the trust acting as a DBA, and it gives out the name, but it's still registered as a number. You can create different divisions by doing different DBAs. You could show that it did have the trust because the trust is generic, and our system is generic. It's not for business. It could be just for holding. So it's not just, it's not just where it actually has to, it doesn't have to just come back to where it has that it's separate. It's not that it's separate. It's the same thing. They're the same thing. It's just one has a different name. Okay. It's like you, when you're out and about, if you want someone to call you something other than your so-called legal name, your government name, then they can call you that. But when you announce it to the public now, the public says, hey, well, you announced it to the public. You're not really anybody different because you're not. The name filed for another name, right? And so that's how business is done. The bank account is just a separate division. And you can have multiple different business names. Whether it's you in the social or whether it's you in a trust fund. Because we in trustee training at the vault do trustee training, which is a trust fund. It deals with the trust fund. The trust funds are generic. So DBAs allow the entity to create a new business profile. It shows the intent that it's out to do business because it's not just sitting around holding assets. See, this is the issue when people enroll in trustee training that have jobs. When you have a job, you're not prepared to do the extra mile work. But when you are not used to having a job, you know about the extra mile work. You want to know what the extra mile work is? It's called getting the job done. You don't take days off. How are you taking days off from your dream? See, entrepreneurs love what they do. People that have a job, if they got fired, they want to keep doing it. People with businesses, they don't always get paid on everything that they do. They have to do work, and it's not always paid work. It's work for the business, for the dream, for the family legacy. That's what it's for. They're looking to get a return on their hours and their minutes, but it may not be immediately. Taking it easy right up. Let me get $15 an hour. Let me get $20 an hour. Let me get $30 an hour. Let me get $50 an hour. Let's get $100 an hour. What about $300? Now we're jumping around. You can barely buy 2 pair of shoes. 2 good quality pair of shoes for $300. Even the shoes that are sold by NBA players are $200. So where are you going to get a pair of shoes that you can put them on and they can give you a greater ROI from what you're wearing as opposed to even wearing basketball sneakers? Unless you're playing basketball, those shoes are irrelevant to your pockets. How's that going to benefit the trust fund? Oh, well, these are sneakers that you can't wear. Exactly. Now they're souvenirs or trophies. Doing business as can be, we always say you don't get creative creating an entity, you get creative in it. That means the business doesn't have labels on it until you put labels on it. It's this type of business, it's that type of business. When they ask, what type of genre of music are you going to do, you got to tell them what genre. You can't just say, you can say I'm doing music, but it has a genre. So it's the same thing with trusteeship. What are you doing in trusteeship? What is this trust doing? It's the substance. This is what you learn in trustee training. Because it's a training system. It's for you to learn it. This is one of many questions that we get on a weekly basis. People come to us to the vote through consultation, and we still answer these questions out here in the public for free because it's a public thing. You actually can Google the county and find out what it takes to file a DBA. You can do that. Ladies and gentlemen, see, we got two types of people that enroll in trustee training. The ones that just want to acquire asset protection, and others, they want to protect their family assets now, later, and for generations to come. And see, the ones that's going to focus on doing it for generations to come, they're going to make that sacrifice like Rockefeller did. At one point, one of the Rockefellers had to make the sacrifice. At one point, one of the Rothschilds had to make a sacrifice. Some of them sacrificed their whole family. Rothschild sacrificed his children. He said, look, I need y'all to go to these other countries and open up a bank. And you got to sit there and get it done. You got to grow it from scratch. Yes, people are going to discriminate against you because you're Jewish. But we need you to create a family bank in another country. Can you get the job done, son? And most people right now, they can't get the job done. Oh, Trust Christian, what you mean? I didn't learn private banking when I was a kid. Oh, Trust Christian, I don't know how to be an entrepreneur. I know how to work I know how to work a job. That's your excuse? Some people don't even want to step up in the trust chain because they're not trying to protect an asset and they're not trying to grow an asset. They don't want to grow assets. Some people just want to protect assets. And then some people, they got such a bad public school education, they actually think it's okay to sit on assets. We know people that are literally, they know nothing about finance. This is how ignorant it is. People have equity in a house and they're trying to sell a house. Why would you sell the house you have equity? People don't know the difference between equity and legal title. They don't have equity. They got equity in the house. They trying to sell the asset. Why? Because they want quick money. They don't want to sell a residual income source. They don't want to refinance out of a loan. Why wouldn't you refinance out of equity? Why wouldn't you take multiple loans? You know, back in the day, people used to take double mortgages and triple mortgages on their property, trying to pay for different things, business ventures they wanted to start. So how are we going to go now? We're going to go where people don't want to grow assets and protect assets at the same time. That's where we are at the vault. See, the trustees that enroll in trustee training, that's where they are at the vault. It's Christian@trustchristian.com. Christian@trustchristian.com. And that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, is when this is a calling for your man and your womanhood. See, in business, no one wants to tell you that. What do you mean, man up or woman up? Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have a boss. You are the boss. You got to tell yourself to get up. You know how many people say, oh, I'm not a morning person, and that's why you work a job. See, entrepreneurs don't have bedtimes. They get up when they know they got to get the work done. So you got to get the work done. You got to get the job done. You got focused on hours instead of focused on work. People forgot about the work. See, they want the riches. They want the story. You know you're not going to be Rockefeller. Why? Because you're not going to sacrifice. You're not willing to give up the time with your family. You're not willing to give up the birthdays. You're not willing to give up having to be working long hours doing business. Because we're in the internet age. People won't even want to work 4 hours a day. Of course you're not going to be a Rockefeller. But hey, you can be a donor to your local hospital. You were going to pay taxes anyways, right? You were going to pay taxes anyways. So you rather give it to the government than go ahead and make sure that your family can make sure that the local hospital keeps standing around. You don't want to give it to the local library so your children can learn how to have educational books available to them through endowments at the local not just law library, but library. You already gonna pay $10,000 in taxes. You already gonna pay $13,000 in tax. You already gonna pay $50,000 in tax. People spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on tax every single year. We know them. They come through the vault all the time. They get consultations. Man, I'm an athlete, man. They got me for $400,000 last year. $400,000. They got me. They got me for $300,000. God damn, $300,000. That's somebody's not even able to buy a house, but you got to pay $300,000 in taxes. Because Christian, man, I play for the NFL, I play for the NBA, I play for these leagues, and they won't let me have a trust fund in front of my face. Hold on. They won't let you have a trust fund? No, well, they were going to set me up in the public trust, Christian, right? That's true, because you're dealing with public people. But they weren't going to set you up. They said that you couldn't do it. You're an employee. We need your social security number, right? Yeah, that's what they need. They need your social security number. They want you to be an employee while they're a tax-free entity. The NBA, the NFL. They're a charity, right? They're trying to keep the natives quiet. So go out there, do your job. So there are benefits to having a DBA for a trust fund, because now people can get in the form of trying to copyright their images, trademark their images. It's a business now. It's not a social, which is an employee, a slave. You don't even own the social security number. You don't need to own the business either, but you got to control it. Trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. That's how it is. It's business. It's not personal. See, personal is the social. See, business, even if it's in a trust fund, a DBA, why aren't you collecting funds that way? I heard about those things, right? But why aren't you collecting funds that way? How come your NFL player liaison or NBA player liaison didn't make sure you were in trust right away? Is it different? It's always different, right? It's always different for you guys, right? First round, right? No, they come through all the time, ladies and gentlemen. They don't get their degrees. They don't know finance. These are young kids. Some of their parents have never been in those positions before. So they don't know how to manage $25 million a year. Some of them don't know how to manage $3 million a year. They never managed more than $50,000 a year. So how are they going to manage $300,000 league minimum when their family, their parents, their mom and their dad has never managed more than $100,000 a year? Some of them have, but not all of them. And this is where you got to invest in your private education. See, some of these athletes, they know that. They got to invest in their private education. Oh, man, the athletes, they got it so good. The athletes got it good, but for some odd reason, they're doing what most of them, do you read the statistics on how much athletes have at the end of their careers? Oh, no, the statistics aren't real, right? Hold on. The statistics aren't real that over 50% of them, when they leave the league, don't even have the money that they made in the league. When we talk about made it, they were living maybe just like an employee. But nevertheless, they still, 50% don't hold on to that level of income or growth. How do you go backwards and you're an employee? That's how you know you're playing a loser's game. How do you get $300,000? Well, it ain't that much out there to do other than the league. Yes, it is. They're called investments. But see, you're using a social. That's why you think like a public person. This is what we say to them on the constant. They're thinking like a public person. Then you got the people that got what they call small businesses. And how are they worse off than the person with the small business? The person with the small business, medium-sized business, they're still building their business. There is no change in lifestyle. See, when you leave the league, there's a change in lifestyle. But oh no, they were around the right people the whole time. Sure you were. We're around mentors. We're supposed to increase our means and increase our lifestyle. Increase. See, we live in increase. We don't live in decrease. We don't live in poverty. We protect our greatest assets, partially ourselves. Why don't you have, we hear some of the athletes have insurance policies on themselves, which they do. Some of them have insurance policies on themselves. But I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we got athletes that they don't even put up the money for their policies. That's how powerful you are as an athlete. You don't even have to put up the money for the policy, because you have equity in your name. You play for a team or a league. Like, they have vested interest in you. The team has a vested interest in you. So the team down there would take the insurance policy out. But they're not. They're not. But there are institutions that will bank on the fact that, look, we just want to see you in playing one NBA game or one NFL game with the name on the jersey, and we know we can make money off of you. In the game. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's business. It's not personal. They need to see your name in front of a commercial or a name after a commercial. DBAs allow you to parse it out, for you to section it out, for you not doing all the business on one social or doing all the business through one name on an EIN. You just don't need to. It gives flexibility. So we know that it's not legal advice. You all know that. You know, we always got to put that in the actual sound recording. It's just talking to business owners, and it always has been. So appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen to replay. Feel free to put into the chat your where you're listening in live or whatever. Always appreciate that. But nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, this DBA question has come up. Alternative names are good things because now you're building equity in the company. It's like having multiple beneficiaries, but they're not beneficiaries, they're workers. So it's like you build different names up because that's what it's called, a doing business as name. So you're doing business through multiple names as a trustee, and in turn, or even, as a trustee because you're the trustee of the trust fund. And now you might have your own division, someone else might have their own division, and multiple trustees can be managing different DBAs. That's another beautiful part about it as well, is that now it could be one number for the entire family to build businesses. So with those DBAs, you might be able to open up courts and then do a DBA with a court. You can do a DBA with a court. So it's not, I'm just stuck to it through a trust. No, you can do it through a court. So there's a lot of flexibility on building equity out on the public side through DBAs. I know those are low-end entities, because they're still tied to one number, but at the same time, they're still able to do business in a different capacity. They could be a completely different division than another division of the actual trust fund or the people that are running the business in general. So always appreciate that. If you have any questions, feel free to type any questions into the chat. Wanted to do this episode because we got this question this past week during a consultation. And, it doesn't take this long to answer it, but we do want to give out multiple examples for multiple years of people doing DBAs. We see people do these DBAs for UCCs, and they're never really work and effective in that realm. It's more like what we're talking about here, where there's a fund or there's a type of business that's actually doing it wants to do something else, and it doesn't want it to be labeled or name-wise tied to the other entity. Of course, people can look it up and find it, but at the same time, it's just where people they're going to look for that name first. That's a name out there in the public that's doing business. So definitely appreciate everybody tuning in live, listening to replay. Trustee Trade is going to get wrapped up here at the end of the year. We're going to go into the new year with a new batch, but right now we're wrapping up some of the session. Feel free to reach out Christian@trustchristian.com and get going in your training so you can get your lessons and move forward with your life. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to reach out. Talk to you soon. Peace.